During the great medieval battles, when arrows whistled in the air and knights rushed into combat to the sound of alarming trumpets, some warriors caused a special tremor in their enemies. These warriors were not heavily armed knights or fearless infantrymen with swords and shields. They were English archers whose skill caused real horror among the foes. Imagine that you are standing on the battlefield, hearing the thud of heavy cavalry and the clank of armor, smelling the raw earth. And then a sound that makes your blood run cold. It is the hiss of arrows flying from an immense distance straight to your side. English archers were known not only for their skill in shooting, but also for their incredible accuracy and deadly power. Their longbows, made of a special wood, allowed them to shoot at huge distances with amazing speed. Among all the weapons that could be used on the battlefield, the bow was considered one of the most effective. The arrows of English archers could easily pierce the armor of the enemies. They did not need swords and shields because the opponents simply could not get close to them. But what made English archers so unique and effective on the battlefield? An important factor was the system of training in which they were involved from an early age. As children, boys began to learn archery. Their teachers were experienced shooters, passing on their skills to the next generation. The training started with the simplest things, learning the structure of the bow, mastering the basic techniques of shooting. The boys learned how to choose the right size of the arrow, how to hold the bow, and pull the string. The seemingly trivial actions became a routine for them, which easily absorbed into their developing minds. Over time, the training became more intensive and serious. The boys learned how to shoot on the move, in different weather conditions, at different distances. Every miss was an opportunity for improvement, every hit a step to perfection. Sometimes the training took place in conditions that were as close as possible to real battles. The boys were subjected to stress and pressure to get used to the atmosphere of combat. This was done so that in a real situation, they would remain calm and confident. The training continued throughout their lives. They constantly improved their skills and technique, preparing for the moment when their skill would be tested in the crucible of battle. However, besides skill, the English archers had a secret weapon, the longbow. But what made the longbow so special? First of all, its manufacture. The longbow was made of a special kind of willow or ash. These trees were flexible enough to provide the longbow with the necessary strength and elasticity for shooting at long distances. It is important to note that the process of making the longbow was complex. It required great skill and experience. The advantages of the longbow were undeniable. It was light and convenient, which allowed the archers to maneuver on the battlefield with more freedom. Thanks to its design, the longbow had a longer range of shooting compared to other types of bows, which made it especially effective in open field and at long distances. Usually, its range was from 180 meters to 270 meters. However, experienced archers shot at impressive 360 meters and even more. At the same time, French bows had a range of about 120 to 180 meters. This gave the English the opportunity to destroy the enemy before he approached. Another advantage of the longbow was its power. The arrows shot from it had astonishing speed and penetration power. They could pierce even the thickest armor and inflict critical damage. Also, an important element of the shooting technique of the English archers was their rapid fire. They could shoot arrows with amazing speed, creating a continuous stream of deadly projectiles and causing panic among the enemy. This was especially important on the battlefield, where a quick and powerful response could decide the outcome of the battle. When it comes to the tactics of the English archers, their role and value were invaluable. The great English shooters did not just shoot at the enemies, they changed the course of entire battles. During the medieval battles, English archers often occupied strategically important positions, providing fire support. Their task was to soften the enemy's forces and create chaos in their ranks. Also, they were not always part of the direct attack. Sometimes, archers were used as ambush units, which could attack the enemy from the flanks or from the rear, inflicting serious damage and completely disorganizing them. In addition, they could be placed on heights to gain an advantage in the range of shooting and the view of the battlefield. Their trademark was the famous tactic of rain of arrows. This technique, in which archers shot a series of arrows and quickly reloaded, created an incredible pressure on the enemy, breaking their ranks and causing panic. They could do this for a long time, maintaining composure and accuracy, which was critically important in fierce battles. All these skills played a key role on August 26, 1346, when the Battle of Crecy took place. This Battle of the 100 Years' War was one of the first where English archers with longbows played a decisive role. The Battle of Crecy was an epic battle that unfolded during the 100 Years' War. The English King Edward III and his army met the French forces commanded by Philip VI and John II, the Duke of Lorraine. Significant forces were brought to the battle, including French knightly units. Territorially, the armies were located on an open plain, which created favorable conditions for the use of archers. English archers were placed in the front rows, covered by the remnants of the forest. This allowed them to concentrate fire on the French knights when they approached the English positions. The French, on the contrary, relied on their numerical advantage and the power of the knights. The battle began with the advance of the French forces, who sought to destroy the English infantry and archers. However, the English archers were well protected by fences and ditches, which complicated the breakthrough of the French knights. The legendary accuracy and speed of shooting of the English archers amazed the imagination. They shot arrows every 5 seconds, covering their enemies with a rain of arrows, destroying and terrifying the French knights. The course of the battle was unpredictable and dynamic. Despite the heroism of the French, the English archers managed to maintain their positions and inflict heavy losses on the enemy. The Battle of Crecy ended with the rout of the French army. The English won the victory, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy and capturing many prisoners. No less epic was the battle in 1415 on the fields of France, when one of the most significant battles of the 100 Years' War unfolded, the Battle of Agincourt. This clash left an unforgettable mark in the history of military art. The English army, led by King Henry V, faced the French forces, which were much more numerous and outnumbered the enemy by several times. However, despite this disproportion, the English had a secret weapon in their arsenal: archers with longbows. The English tactic was to place their archers in the front positions and attack the French from afar before they came close enough for a direct confrontation. Also, the English skillfully placed their forces on a narrow strip between the forest and the swamp, which made it impossible for the enemy to flank them and forced them to go head-on, becoming under the fire of the archers. The number of the English army was only about 6,000 people, while the French were about 20,000. But despite this, thanks to their skill and strategy, the English won an impressive victory. These battles are just a few examples from the many when English archers with longbows crushed the enemies, helping to win victories, even when the enemy had a numerical advantage. English archers with longbows left an indelible mark in the history of military art and culture. Their skill in the battles of the 100 Years' War and other conflicts not only brought victories, but also had a significant impact on the development of military strategy and public perception of military service. But not only military art was affected by the activity of the English archers. They became a symbol of the nation and pride. Their stories and legends were passed down from generation to generation. In art and literature, they were often mentioned as heroes and examples of courage. However, with the development of firearms and the change of war tactics, the era of the English archers gradually ended. Bows were replaced by more modern types of weapons, and their role on the battlefield became less significant. But the legacy of the longbow lives on in military history and folk art. English archers with longbows remain a symbol of skill, strength, and endurance. And their influence on military art is impossible to overestimate.